Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just going to wait a couple minutes for everybody to get the opportunity to sign on and log on if they're choosing to spend this next little bit of time with me. Um, so I will be back in about 3 or 4 minutes, and then I'll begin getting into exactly what it is that my talk is going to be about. So I'll give those people a couple extra minutes just to hop on and join this conversation. All right, I'll be right back. Thank you. All right, everybody. So I'm back. This is kind of weird for me because, within my role and within my job, I do get the opportunity to do a lot of presentations and different things like that within the school board and within the university. Um, it's totally different to sit here and talk to a camera. This is something that I'm not used to. So just bear with me till I find my groove and find my comfort level and stuff. And then yeah, hopefully it's you guys get something out of this. I brought some notes and stuff, which I'm going to refer to throughout my talk. Like I said, this is new to me, so bear with me. So my name is Mike Cywink. I currently work out of the Center for School Mental Health at Western University here in London. We have a partnership with the Thames Valley District School Board, and I get the opportunity to go into different high schools and elementary schools and stuff, and run these different mentorship programs and cultural learning opportunities and different things like that. I'll get a little bit more into the specifics of what those programs are and exactly what they do and what I do in a little bit, but I'm just going to kind of talk about my path and my journey right now, and kind of like how I got to where I'm at and what I'm doing, and all the support that I've had throughout my career and my life, and how that's kind of shaped me into the person that I become. So like I said, my name is Mike Cywink. I'm Anishinaabe. I'm originally from Whitefish River First Nation, which is up near Manitoulin Island. I grew up not on the reserve, but probably about 5-minute drive from the reserve. So my upbringing was a little bit different. I lived in a town called Whitefish Falls, which was like, had a population of like 100 people. So it was very, very small. Obviously we didn't have a school or high school or elementary school or things like that. So we got bused out to Espanola, which is where I went to elementary and high school. I made a lot of really good friends, and that's always going to be home for me. I've been living in London for probably about 10 years now, working with the First Nation youth here in London and the neighboring communities. There are 3 local First Nations around this area: Chippewa of the Thames First Nations, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware First Nation. So within London and within the school system, there's a very large First Nation population. So that's why programs like mine, the 4th R and Healthy Relationships, thrive and do well, is because there's a lot of students that need support within our school system. So that's where my focus is, and that's where my work is. Grew up north, played a lot of sports. Sports were a big part of my life growing up. I did pretty okay in school. Like I graduated and everything and all that stuff, but like there's more to life than just school. And for me to enjoy high school and to enjoy those different things, I felt like I had to do more within that school setting. So sports is what I did. I played basketball growing up. Basketball was my biggest passion. I worked on my game, worked on my jumper, everything, day in, day out and stuff. And that really really kept me focused and driven to do well in school, because like I had a pretty strong support system at home. My mom and my stepdad and they really wanted me to do well. And so one of the things that they said is like, if you want to continue playing basketball, you got to do well in school. So those things go hand in hand, and those things definitely helped me grow and be a better person. So like I said, basketball is a huge influence on my life, and like being in this like mentorship role now that I'm in, I just remember looking back and looking up to these different basketball players and different athletes like Vince Carter and Allen Iverson and Reggie Miller and these kinds of guys. And like, you know, just thinking that they're the absolute best, and like not just their on-court stuff, but their off-court stuff too. And like so having those role models and stuff in people's lives, in my life, was really, really important. And then as I grew up, like I kind of started looking for different types of role models in my life, more of like from a cultural perspective. Because when I was in high school, I wasn't nearly as connected to my culture as I am now. It was always available in my house and stuff, and my parents always said, like, you know, if you want to learn more about who you are and your identity as an Anishinaabe, that it's always there. We always did things like smudge in the house, and those cultural learning opportunities were always there. They made sure of that, but I wasn't ready. Like I said, I was in high school, and I was just all about sports and hanging out with my friends and playing video games and those types of things like most high school people do. And the cultural piece and that aspect of myself definitely took a back seat to a lot of other things. And it took me a long time to embrace that and to kind of grow into that. It always felt like there was a piece missing. And as I got older and stuff, I started realizing and understanding that that's what it was. So that definitely gave me a good perspective as to what some of our students are dealing with that I work with. Some people are ready to embrace that side of themselves, and some people aren't. Like I said, it took me a long time till I was like in my 20s, and it was definitely a life-changing experience, I guess you would say, embracing that side of who I am and embracing that identity. I'm going to talk about identity quite a few times about this and what that means for our students, because within my work, like, it's all about student success. And student success, I don't just see as like graduating high school. You know, being a successful person isn't just getting A's and good grades. That's a big part of it. Like, obviously I want to see our students graduate and do well and move on and do other things and help other people, and one day like sit in this spot like where I am, and they're the ones having this talk with you guys. But there's a lot more to it than that, and that goes along with that cultural piece. I brought some of my art here to show about it. And the one picture is the Anishinaabe medicine wheel. So I'll talk a little bit more about the cultural stuff in a little bit and what that means, but and kind of what that looks like in terms of like student success, and how all those quadrants have to be in balance and equal, and like how important that is to walk that good path and lead a good life. Like I said, it's not just all about good grades. It can't be. Even though that is really important. I always tell my kids, go to class, do your homework, that kind of stuff, because it is important. So I sorry, I just keep reading these little comments here. Like I said, I'm new to this, so bear with me. So I played basketball. Now I still play basketball in different leagues here in town and play different sports, because like I said, it's a huge part of my life. That's what I grew up doing, you know, and that's just who I am. I went to high school, Espinal High School, graduated in a long time ago. After that, I moved to North Bay and I took police foundations. I originally had intentions of being a police officer. And, you know, I really wanted to, I always knew that I wanted to like help my people and try and be that good person. And so I thought policing would be a good way to go about it. But I did that, and then I did a couple of security jobs and stuff, started building on my resume towards that, pursuing that policing career. But I kind of didn't follow through with it. It's not that I didn't follow through with it. I started working with First Nation youth. I started working, doing things like TAing in classrooms and being like support at different elementary schools and stuff. And that's where my heart was. You have to be happy at what you're doing, right? And I just found that working with kids was what I was meant to do. Life is a lot about, like, you know, trying to find your path and what makes you happy and why you're here. And I just think that, like, working with First Nation youth, like, I just call them youth, I don't call them First Nation youth, but I think that's what I'm meant to do, you know. I started working at the Fourth Hour. So I worked, currently I work out of the Center for School Mental Health here at Western. And I run a program called the Fourth Hour, which is all about healthy relationships. Like I said earlier, there's a huge First Nation population within the school board. With the healthy relationship programming and stuff, they added some cultural adaptations to be more culturally specific for that demographic of students. And so that's what I do. I run these different leadership and mentorship programs to help our students graduate and enjoy going to school, right? You have to enjoy, like I said, you have to enjoy what you do. And if these students are like going to school and hating it, then they're not living a healthy, happy life, you know. And at least if I can go in there and give them some of those school connected pieces and that cultural connectedness, then that's what I'm going to do, right? Each student is different, and a lot of the staff and a lot of the teachers at the different schools don't have that cultural competency and understand that. And that's no fault of their own, right? Like, that's just the way the system has been. There's a lot of different changes, positive changes that are happening. And I see that because there's so many more teachers now and different staff and stuff who understand these different cultural differences and these reasonings why our students are the way they are and why they're different and the different challenges that they face. So I'm very proud of the work that I do, and I'm very proud of the growth and stuff that I see within our students, because some of these students that I work with, like, I'm not in the school every single day. I get told to go to different schools throughout the school year, and so like I only get to see them once a week, sometimes a little bit more when we do other things outside the programming. But to see the growth and the empowerment and the pride and those types of things is really where the meat and potatoes is for me. The stuff where it's like, you know, this kid at the beginning of the sessions, like, didn't know anything about his cultural background, but at least like the little bit that I can teach him or her, and now they're willing to share with their class and talk about that and instilling that empowerment within them. That's where it's at, man. That's the important stuff for me. So I'm gonna read out what the 4th R is. Like I said, I work out of the Center for School Mental Health, and so I'm gonna read what my program is, just so you guys kind of get a sense of what it is. Okay. So my program, the 4th R, is the Uniting Our Nations, includes a range of programs developed in partnership with the Thames Valley District School Board. That's the school board here in London. The Uniting Our Nations program have the same focus on healthy relationships as other 4th R programs, but are delivered within a culturally relevant context. Although the programs range from one-day conferences to year-long weekly sessions and 3-day intensive experiences, there are underlying commonalities. I don't know what that word is. It was there and I knew I was going to mess it up. Common themes include a focus on healthy relationship development, the provision of culturally relevant experiences, and an emphasis on mentoring. The inclusion of culturally relevant experiences have been identified as a best practice in programming. Mentoring has also been identified as an effective and important mechanism for supporting Indigenous youth. The common elements help to ensure the programs are complementary and reinforce each other, but are not redundant for youth who participate in multiple programs. The Uniting Our Nations programs were developed in collaboration with Indigenous educators, students, counselors, and community partners. So there's like the core base of the 4th R, which deals with healthy relationships, and giving students the different tools and stuff to identify those healthy relationships and how to continue them, and things like how to apologize when you're wrong, and those extra things that they don't necessarily learn within a school setting. Relationships can be taught, like kind of healthy relationships can be taught, kind of like how different things are taught within the school. So within our program, we do things like, okay, so we'll go back to the apology thing. So like you can learn how to be sincere about an apology. It's one thing to be kind of crappy to your friend and then apologize and like everything's okay, but to be sincere about it, that's difficult for a lot of people to do. So we do different skill building activities and things to help with that. And with my programming, there's a huge Indigenous content to it as well. That's probably the biggest draw for our students, why they continue to come and why it continues to be successful, is because there's that cultural connectedness to it as well. When you walk into school and stuff, you have to see yourself represented. You have to see yourself recognized within the school setting, and like doing programs like this, like the 4th R, the kids get that and they see that, and that's why they continue to come. They get to come with their classmates, their other Native classmates, and be a part of this program and grow together and learn some stuff and do some fun activities and eat pizza and hang out with me and all those types of awesome things. So we have a partnership with the Thames Valley District School Board, and I technically work out of the Center for School Mental Health, but all of my work is pretty much done within the school board. So I'm kind of there as like a student support kind of guy. So I go into 3 different high schools and 4 different elementary schools on a weekly basis and run the program. And anytime there's any other things that I can help out the teachers with or the students with, I can, and I try. That's all I can do is try. Like I said, I can't be at all the schools all the time. I'm just a piece of the puzzle to try and help these kids succeed. So I do provide them with different cultural learning opportunities. Some students come from a very strong cultural background. The culture's in the home. They went to school, elementary school on the reserve. So within that school, there's huge cultural pieces and teachers and faces and art and all these different things. And they go to a different school and there may not be any of that stuff. So that transition into a different school setting where you don't see yourself represented or you don't see yourself in the teachers or anything like that, that's huge. Students have a hard enough time right now with that transition into high school, and to layer on top of that the cultural pieces for our Indigenous students is tough. The things like those stereotypes and the racism that they may encounter, not just from other students but from some teachers who have no idea. It's difficult. It's really difficult. And like when I go in these schools and stuff, these kids, they talk to me, right? Like they don't see me as a teacher. They see me as Mike, right? Somebody who's trying to help them and somebody who's doing a lot of work within the schools. And so they talk to me and they tell me about these different experiences they have. And that's on top of like those cultural learning opportunities and programs and stuff. That's another thing that I try and provide is that student voice, where they get an opportunity to talk about things that are happening within their lives and within their schools, because they might not be comfortable going to a non-First Nation teacher and saying, okay, this is what's happening in my life. And if that kid is experiencing that, they're experiencing those different types of racism and stereotyping and prejudice and those terrible, horrible things. Do you think they're going to want to go to school? No, of course not. I wouldn't want to go anywhere like that. If I knew there's going to be some people that were treating me differently because I'm First Nation, do you think I'm going to want to go there? Do you think I'm ever going to go there? No, of course not. So these are some of the barriers and stuff that we're trying to overcome, that I'm trying to overcome for our students. So within my mentorship programs and stuff like that, I do a lot of work with teachers and staff and administration and things like that, and try and help them realize that these are some of the issues that our kids are facing. It's not, those aren't pleasant conversations, and they're difficult. When you walk into a room and you're the only Native guy and it's all a bunch of suits and you're trying to tell them that these are some of the things that the kids are facing, it's difficult. Sometimes life can be, in this job, could be pretty difficult. But I get my strength and my courage from them, from the kids. Because I know that they're the ones that are struggling. And I'm not doing these types of things for me. I'm doing it for them. You know, for me, everything always comes back to family. So I think about like my brothers and my sisters and my nieces and the ones that are coming next. And those are the ones that we have these conversations for, right? It's not for us. It's not for me. It's for them. Because before us, the ones that walked this path before us, they had those conversations. Right, and they had that fight, and they had those discussions, and so we have to continue that on and continue those fights. But within our work and within what I do, there's been a ton of progress. I see it. I definitely see it, and the support and where Thames Valley is at and stuff. They've definitely gotten so much better in terms of like identifying our Indigenous students and helping them on their path. It's great. It's great. We just got to keep that ball rolling and keep that momentum going and continuing to support them. So they do succeed and they do want to go to school and they do want to graduate and continue on. My mentoring programs, the transition from going to school in the reserve and high school, those different things. I do a lot of my program is all about healthy relationships, and I do a lot of that stuff too. So my role is also about building those relationships with the schools and the administration and the teachers and the staff. And throughout my journey, I've encountered some amazing teachers, right, who are willing to learn or there to support the kids, and who are some of my best friends, you know, and like even outside of work and stuff like that. These people are amazing, and they found their path, right? Like I was talking earlier, I'm trying to find mine. They found theirs in being an educator and working with kids and stuff, and you can see it. And even from our kids, like I can tell the connectness that some of the kids have with some of the teachers. Like I said, like I'm kind of like an outside presence type thing. I'm not in there every day, so like that stuff is huge. That stuff is huge for the kid to want to continue going to school and having those teachers there that support them and understand those differences, those cultural differences from where they're coming from. So I'm just another piece of that puzzle of those student supports to try and get our kids to graduate and move on to that next step. So I talked a little bit about student success, and I'll talk about that a little bit after. So to kind of give you an overview of what my programming is, so I do a bunch of different programs under that 4th-hour healthy relationship umbrella. So the first program that I run is an elementary mentoring program. I work in 4 different elementary schools throughout the school year. We have a 16-week program, and it's divided up into 2 different 8-session blocks. So we do 8 before Christmas and 8 after. And again, it's all about healthy relationships. It's completely voluntary, like the kids don't have to come, but they choose to do so just because of the fact that there's that cultural component to it. So they like being around other First Nation students and around their culture and things like having our ceremonies and our traditions talked about and encompassing that within the school environment. So we do things like start off with a smudge and talk about just everything. We try and like incorporate cultural teachings that are kind of go along with the theme of the topic of that day. So for an example, like within this elementary mentoring program, one of the sessions is about goal setting. So we talk about, okay, you guys, like, what are some goals you want to do when you get to high school? So these are grade 7, 8 students that I work with. So they're almost on the next step of going to high school. So things like we talk about like goal setting. So it's like, okay, when you get to high school, what are some of the things that you want to accomplish? We talk about long-term goals and short-term goals. And to kind of partner that up with a cultural teaching, we talk about like the dream catcher. And we end up making actual dream catchers, and we get the teachings behind that, and kind of like the whole setting goals and chasing your dreams kind of go hand in hand with the cultural teaching and the 4th-hour healthy relationship stuff. So with each session, we have something different like that go along with it. When working with Indigenous students, understanding that cultural piece is part of their identity. It's part of who we are, and to walk that good path and to be happy, like that stuff has to be identified. So 16 different weeks. I'm in 4 different high schools. There's definitely some differences within the elementary schools that I work in. Some of them are more centrally located within London, and other ones are kind of on the outskirts. So within the neighboring First Nation communities, there are elementary schools there as well. So some of the kids go up until they go to the one school, Standing Stone, which is in Oneida, and that school goes up to grade 6. So for grade 7, 8, they go into either Lambeth Public School or Delaware Central Public School. And so they have 2 transitions. They got that grade 6 into grade 7. Then after grade 8, then they go into high school. Antler River Elementary School is in Chippewa-the-Thames, and that one goes up to grade 8. So I don't get to do a lot of work with them. I wish I did. Because that's the community that I'm from. I said I'm from Whitefish River, which is up north, but my father's from down here from Chippewa-the-Thames. So I know a lot of the students and a lot of the families and stuff like that. So with the 2 different types of types of schools, there's the ones that are within London, and I find that a lot of the students, from my experience, don't have a strong cultural background. for a bunch of various different reasons. And sometimes the only cultural pieces they get are from some of the stuff that I bring in. And like I said earlier, I know that schools are all making progress and stuff and identifying those things. But just from my experience, I could tell that some students in some schools, their student body, there's a lot more of that cultural knowledge and understanding. And so there's differences, right, in those conversations. When we talk about the cultural pieces, a lot of the kids already know about it, some of the stuff, and some don't. And, and it's different. It's definitely different. So as long as I could like spark that fire, you know what I mean, for the ones that don't have any cultural background knowledge because it's not in the home or it's not whatever, they just haven't been exposed to that side yet, or they have and they just don't care yet. Like I said earlier, with me, like it took a long time for me to embrace that part of myself. But yeah, so as long as I could spark that fire and get them interested into identifying that part of themselves, then that's what I'm going to do, right? Because to walk that good path, you got to understand where you come from and that background, that your family, that your bloodline comes from is so important. So yeah, so the elementary mentoring program is fantastic. There's a lot of different discussions and stuff, and it's really rewarding. Another one of the programs I do is a peer mentoring program. So that one's for high school students. So I talked a little bit about transition and what that kind of looks like for some of our students. So every student has a difficult time when they get into high school, right? They're trying to find themselves, they're trying to find their identity, they're trying to find their place within the school. And for some of these students, like the ones I talked about that go to like Antler River Elementary, for example, they went to a school where all the teachers, a big chunk of the teachers were all Native. All their classmates, everybody in the school, the custodian, everybody was First Nation. You're going to school in your own community, and then all of a sudden you get sent to a school like Beale, where there's like 2,000 students with such a huge, diverse cultural melting pot of different people. It's a culture shock. It's like so difficult to navigate that for a student. So that's why we do this peer mentoring program. What we do is we partner up older grade 11, 12 students with younger grade 9, 10 students and run the program. So it's similar to elementary mentoring in that there's 16 weeks total, 8 before Christmas, 8 after. And yeah, so that's very highly successful too. We run over their lunch hour, so we have to feed them lunch. And yeah, just each week we work through a different thing about learning who they are and building that connectedness, not just to the program and to their mentor, but to the school as well. Not all students play sports or anything outside of the classroom, so at least they have something that they can look forward to be a part of outside of just like, going to math or going to geography or whatever it is. Like I said, you got to do other things within your school experiences to enjoy it. I had sports growing up, and some people don't play sports, so they need that connectedness somehow. And the cultural thing is a great way to draw them in and give them that piece. So what we do, like I said, we partner up older students with younger students to help with that transition, and that one's more led by the mentors. So take Saunders, for example. I think we had like 11 or 12 different mentors this year. And so they come up to the university, I bring them up to the university, and there's a manual that they go through. And we kind of do this training day where they get to learn what our expectations are and what their responsibilities are within this mentorship role, this leadership role within the program. And then each week, like I'll go to the school and bring them lunch, and then we'll hang out and we'll have like our smudge and get into the program. Then they'll break off into small groups or their pairs or whatever it is and go through the program. So that piece, like I kind of put it all together and then kind of get them all going type thing. And then the mentors are the ones who lead the actual sessions. So like my role is kind of like giving them that empowerment to do that, to be those leaders within their schools and to help the younger students. And our goal and our hope is that one day that those mentees, those grade 9s and 10s who are still learning and trying to find that transition, or trying to find themselves and have success within that transition, is that one day they'll be the mentors, right? So it's just this continuous circle of like us supporting each other and like coming through. So then the grade 9s now, in 3 years, they'll be the mentors for the next group of grade 9s coming through. So yeah, that's been highly successful as well. And a big part of it is, I keep coming back to this, but that cultural piece. The kids really are drawn to that because it's who they are. And it's really great to see. It's really great to see that empowerment. And we talk about like some pretty serious issues at times, and we talk about things like substance use and abuse and drugs and alcohol and racism and stereotypes and those types of things that these kids see. And it's amazing to see like the growth and the pride and stuff that we try and instill in these students, to talk about those things and to stand up for something when it's not right, to stand up for their friends if they're experiencing bullying, or if they're experiencing those racist things, to be able to stand up, or to be able to go and get help, to use that voice and to let people know that, like, these things are happening. It's making me feel unsafe. You hear a lot about the term safe schools and stuff within the schools, but what does that actually look like for our First Nation students? What does that actually mean? It's not just about being physically safe. It's about being emotionally safe, and mentally safe, and spiritually safe. Having other people recognize you for your differences and recognize your cultural background, and understanding that it's different, right? And vice versa, right? Going into these huge schools and stuff and understanding that, yeah, people aren't always going to agree with you. People are, they have different backgrounds and different belief systems, but respecting that. Just because something's different doesn't mean that it's bad. So instilling all those things within our students within this peer mentoring program is kind of what we do. I'm currently on a break in between right now. So like I said, we do 8 before Christmas and 8 after. So I can't wait to start back up, do the back 8 sessions. We have a lot of repeat students who continuously join the program just because they like it and they like helping out, and it's a good resume builder and those types of other things on top of the moral factor of, I'm helping my students, I'm helping my cousin, I'm helping such and such with their transition. So there's a lot of really good positive things that come from these types of programs. So another one that I do is the FNMI Student Leadership Council. So this one is open board wide. I get told by Thames Valley which schools I go in and do like the peer mentoring and the mentoring program. And some of them are more open board wide. So this is one of them, our FNMI Student Leadership Council. This one's been running for I think 7 or 8 years. And it started before my time. It's really just grown. So this year we have, I think, 9 different schools and 25-ish different students, all from those different schools. So we bring them up to the university, and we do we bring them up. We have 7 sessions, 1 monthly meeting a month for 7 months. And yeah, so we kind of work towards a year-end goal. We bring in different guest speakers, and we bring in a lot of Indigenous students who go to Western and stuff, who went through what they did and are now onto that next step. Things like that. Kids like hearing from them because they see themselves, right? So they get to see what their path was like, and what those steps they had to take to get there, what that looked like. Because a lot of the students who now go to university kind of experience some of the same things that they're facing. And so they really enjoy that. And then we bring in, like I said, not just students like that, but we bring in cultural knowledge carriers and teachers and language people and things like that, because a big part of it, why these students join that is to learn more about the culture and that identity of who they are. For previous years, we've only had 2 or 3 meetings so far this year, so we're still kind of fresh and we haven't decided what direction we want to go. But each year we do something different. So a couple years ago we did a YouTube video, and it was what I wish my teachers knew about me. So they got an opportunity to. We had the film crew come in. They videotaped the kids, and they had different methods of how they want to get their message across. So some spoke, some wrote down their messages, some wrote cue cards, different things like that, and just some things that they wanted their teachers to know what it was like being an Indigenous student within the Thames Valley District School Board. Some schools have like a lot of First Nation teachers and a lot of different cultural opportunities, but other ones don't. Just because they don't have like a high FNMI population, those kids still need that stuff. They still need the cultural pieces. So they get to through that video, they got to tell their teachers what it is they wanted them to know about them. Like some students, like, you know, it takes them an hour and a half to get to school because of the bus, whereas the other kid can just 5-minute walk down the road. Those types of things, right? So that was a great project that we did. We filmed it up at the Museum of Ontario Archaeology. It was fantastic. The one we did last year is we had 9 different schools. So we had, I wanted to do an art project, as you could tell. I'm trying to be an artist, I want to do an art project with kids. So I always like giving them the opportunity. It's like, what do you guys want to do this year? What do you guys want to say? What kind of message you guys want to get across? Again, going back to that student voice. So we did an art project, and so we had 9 different schools last year. So we did 9 different pieces. We did 3 by 3. So 1, 2, 3, 3 going down, 9 pieces. And so what they did is they each created their own image. I kind of put it all together, and then we painted this one piece. It's supposed to be being held up, or not held up. It's going to be hung up at the Thames Valley District School Board office, but it's still in the process of making that finalized. The kids worked really hard on this, so I'm really hoping that goes through soon. If not, we're going to start rotating them throughout the high schools so they can have their work showcase. So the art is really important. It's really important to me and to a lot of First Nation students. I'll talk a little bit more about my artistic stuff in a little bit, but think about that kid who first goes to this new school and stuff, and they don't feel like they belong, or they don't feel like they're represented within the school, and they walk around the corner and they see a huge piece of Indigenous art there. So at least there's like, it might not seem like a lot to somebody, but for that kid, that might mean the world. Like it might be, okay, I am being recognized, I am being represented. I see myself here. You know, I see like I could potentially fit in here. And that stuff's really important. That's why I love painting. I love getting my art out there as well. So this year we have a huge, great, fantastic group of students. I'm excited for the direction that we're going to go with them, because they already seem like such a keen group and have such great ideas. And I'm very excited. Again, like we have a lot of repeat students who continuously decide to be a part of our programs because they enjoy it. And it's fantastic. Another one that I do is a cultural leadership camp. That one changes every year. We used to partner up with the Tim Hortons Children Foundation, and they have a huge campsite just outside of Brantford in Six Nations, right near Six Nations. And so we used to bring a big group of students out there, 40 to 50, I think. And then we would have them for like 3 days and 2 nights, and then we would do different cultural activities and a whole bunch of different positive things, play lacrosse, all these language stuff, and all these different awesome things. And those were hugely successful. We kind of stepped away from that from a little bit. Thames Valley took over the lead on it for a couple of years. It was just such a huge undertaking. We kind of wanted to give it a break for a little bit. We might revisit it down the road a little while, but right now it's gone from like a 3-day event to a 1-day event. So every year I try and do something different. We've done things like high ropes and different cultural learning opportunities, things like making the dream catchers, and we just try and incorporate a full day of really fun activities and try and get the most out of the students. And we bring them up to Western. And last year we brought them to the, like I said, every year it's different. So last year we brought them to the Mohawk Institute, which was a residential school just outside of Brantford. And that was a pretty tough day. We brought a lot of support for the students in terms of like staff and people from our center, myself, and then we had like there's a huge abundance of students that wanted to go. So originally we had planned on taking like 30 students, I think it was, and I just started getting application after application, all these students who wanted to go, and it was pretty eye-opening. So there was this form that they had to fill out, and it was like, okay, why do you want to go? Why do you want to go to this this field trip to this residential school? And the amount of kids I wrote down, because my grandpa went, because my grandma went, because my uncle went, because my aunt went to that school, was crazy. I had no idea, and I work with these students all the time and see them all the time and stuff. And those are the types of things when I talk about like relationships with your students and understanding them and where they come from, where it's so difficult, because like you could talk about the residential schools within your like curriculum and the school stuff, but like when you meet somebody who's actually lived that or has their family impacted by those different events, like it's crazy. And like I said, like I couldn't believe how many students wrote that down. And how do you say no? Like how do you say no? Like I'm so glad that Thames Valley was so supportive, and I was like, you know, I'm getting all these applications for all these students who want to come, and they just want to like experience it and be there, and just to check it out and learn from the day. And we had a survivor who went to that school, came and shared her story with us and stuff. So Thames Valley was super supportive. I'm like, yeah, Mike, okay, you know, order another bus, we'll bring more students and stuff. Because like, how do you say no to that one kid, man? Like you can't. I couldn't. That was a pretty powerful day. It was a great learning opportunity, but it was very difficult too, and like heavy, like coming back on the bus and stuff, and trying to remain positive, even though we heard a bunch of like those horrible things that happened. But yeah, and like I said, like these types of things, like a lot of parents didn't want their kids to go, understandably, right? Like we present these opportunities. It's like, you know, if your student or your child wants to go to this, you know, it's available to them. But a lot of parents and stuff didn't want their kids to go. And I totally get it. Like I totally understand. And but making sure those opportunities are there if the kids want to take part in them is pretty important. So yeah, so our Student Leadership Council is fantastic, great group of kids, and our Cultural Leadership Camp is usually pretty highly successful. So those are like my main ones that I normally do. Other things that I do with Thames Valley is like, so one there was a huge push, it seems, over the past little bit has been the Caros blanket activity. I don't know if anybody's ever participated in that or done that, but like I got to facilitate that like 50 times now in the past like 2 years. And what it is just this interactive activity where they talk about the different historical events that happened between the Indigenous peoples and the European settlers when they arrived. And we've done that activity not just for students, but for like administration and teachers and principals and different levels of people within the school system. And it's pretty good. Some people like it, some people don't. And I totally get it. But there's like, it's difficult. So you go through the actual activity, which probably takes about 45 minutes. Then afterwards you have like the sharing circle where you talk about your feelings or something new you learned or whatever it is. And that's where the meat and potatoes is, man. That's where the hope comes out of, for me anyways. being a facilitator and like hearing some of the things that the teachers share and the teachers want to see more of, and that progress about moving forward. That's where that hope comes from, or that's where that, okay, we got a lot of work left still to do. So there's that balance of like both things, the positive and the negative. So I've done a lot of those. It's an online resource you can get off the Caro's website, I'm pretty sure. Like I started doing this like 2 years ago, so I kind of forget the actual steps to get the program, but it's pretty good. We do a lot for like history classes too. So like before they get, a lot of the history teachers, before they get into the actual Indigenous portion of their course, they want to start off with this. This kind of some kind of foundation or background for the material that they're going to cover. So other things too, like I do a lot of presentations, I do a lot of traditional openings. I am on that cultural learning path myself. I am by no means consider myself like a traditional knowledge carrier. I feel like I have a long ways to go. I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of people who do carry the knowledge and who do walk that really good path. And within my job, within my role, and within my life, I'm very proud to call a lot of these people my friends, and they're my greatest teachers. Not only am I an employee at Western, but also go to school here as well. So when I think about teachers, like I think about those knowledge carriers. When I think about the ones that have taught me the most so far, it's those ones that walk that good path and carry that eagle feather and try to be true to themselves and who they are. Those are my greatest teachers. And you know what? It's not always just ones who are older than me. Some of my greatest teachers are those kids that I work with. Seeing their kindness and their love and those things that they carry, those 7 grandfather teachings, or those traits that they just naturally carry with themselves. You learn a lot from them, man. I do. Just going and checking my notes here. Going on an hour here, that's pretty good. So I do a lot of support for the Thames Valley District School Board, not working with students, but with staff and administration and a lot like that. So a lot of things that I have talked about and within my programming with the students, we talk about leadership and empowerment. So having these kids take up those leadership roles within their schools, within their communities is so important. We want them to have that voice and to stand up for what's right and do it in a respectful way. Those are our teachings, and those are how we're supposed to live this life. Look out for one another, and that's what I try and do. I try and give them that empowerment of being proud of who you are. And like some days are more difficult than others because of some of the discussions that we have, and I hear some of the heartbreaking things that these kids tell me that they experience in their schools and within the school board and stuff. And it's tough. It's tough for me, and I'm an adult. So imagine being like a 14-year-old kid and experiencing some of those things on top of all the other pressures that are already there within high school. Like, life can be pretty tough, man. And this is just one step up that ladder of life that we're trying to get these kids to realize, because they might have bad experiences and stuff, and then they just absolutely hate high school. And then what? And you drop out. And then what? Good luck getting a job. Good luck like moving on type thing, So like breaking down those stereotypes and trying to give these kids that empowerment to like be proud of who they are and to stand up for each other and to get help when they need it. That's one of the biggest ones, is getting that help. So that's what we try and do. I'm pushing an hour here. I just guess I'm gonna wrap it up a little bit. In closing, I guess I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. Sitting here in Dr. Peter Jaffe's office, and like I said, this is my first time ever doing one of these Facebook talks here. And usually, like when I do my presentations, you kind of like feel out the audience and stuff, and I bust a couple jokes, and then that comfort level comes when they laugh, or they fake laugh. At least they're trying. But it's a little bit different when you're just sitting here. So I just want to say thank you to the Center for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children, and the neighbors, friends, and families at Cywink for giving me this opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the work that we do with the neighboring center, the Center for School Mental Health, and some of the work that's being done within the Thames Valley District School Board to support our Indigenous students. It's definitely rewarding work. It's definitely difficult work, but it's worth it. Like I said, seeing the empowerment in some of these students and watching them grow. Like some of the students, like I get them in grade 7 and I see them all the way throughout high school, and then seeing them take that next step and like go on to university or go on to take a trade or whatever it is, but continuing to move forward to help better themselves and their communities and their families. It's amazing. It's amazing. So it's really rewarding. So I'm very thankful and grateful to be in the position I'm in. I want to continue doing this work and being there to support our students and having those people support me. Like when I was growing up, man, I had all those supports. I had a strong family, support at home. I had strong like basketball coaches and my friends. Like I can't thank my friends enough for being there for me when I was growing up. I definitely picked a bunch of pretty good ones, that's for sure. And so if I could be that support for some of these students, that's what I'm going to continue and try and do. So I don't know if there's any questions or anything or what I do next. Again, to go with like that comfort level, I walked into this office and there's a Montreal Canadian jersey hanging up. It's pretty gross. Anyways, I'm just going to say thank you again, Cywink, for listening to me for the past hour. Oh, anyways, bye. Just hit end? Okay, I'm getting yelled at here. Thanks, guys. Bye.